do that. So I'm now recording into the cloud. So I'm so excited I can't speak now, Lynn. I'm so excited to welcome you, LYNN RUTH MILLER, to our Silver Wisdom interview. And honestly, when I first saw I don't even know which video it was of a comedy routine, but I was so captivated with the fact that you started your stand-up comedy career at 70.
Yes.
And then I read that you started a burlesque career at 73. And I thought, is that a joke? Is that part of your stand-up?
Oh, it's what I did. Yeah.
And you're just a phenomenal woman, but you're a phenomenal example of starting new things as you get older. And just honestly, if I can just say, it's like you don't give a shit, and I love it.
That's exactly right. But but the important thing is I've got a new book out, and it's just about that. It's why not? If we're here, why live the same day every day? I'm living in a sheltered housing thing where that's what they do. They don't do anything. I'm the only one that goes out at night. I think they're all sitting and watching television. I don't even have time for television. I don't have time. But and as you know, I changed countries when I was 80. I was 80, yeah. And I wrote novels in my 60s. That's what I did in my 60s. I wrote novels. If you don't, if you're here, you might as well make the most of it. But the problem is that society doesn't want us to as we get older, and particularly women. That I have hit one block after another. I just watched the most wonderful video. I was just watching it about a young black composer whose grandfather was a slave in Florida, I think, and he said. And I mean, if I think walls, I've hit walls. It's nothing compared to the walls he hit, as because in America, they couldn't use the same toilet, they couldn't ride in the same bus, and he said you just have to get around it, and that's just what I've done. Society is saying to me from the time I was 60, they have saying to me, you're inept, your mind isn't working, you're not valuable, you're invisible. And I'm saying, no. I'm saying, no, no, no. I've got things to do. Don't stop me.
They're just amazing. Can I ask what what set you off on stand-up comedy career though?
It was an accident. Now that's in my book. That's in my book. That's in Getting the Last Laugh. I'm a journalist and I'm an eternal optimist. I got a master's degree from Stanford University when I was 30, 1963. When I was 30, and I thought, yes, I'm 30 years old. I've got this master's degree. I will be hired by the New York Times. I wasn't. And I kept, that's a story. So that's 30. So I am now 70 years old. This is 40 years later. I still haven't been hired by the New York Times, and I'm still looking for a way to get them to notice what a marvelous writer I am. And I see this thing, and by that time I had books, and I was promoting books. And at the end of and nobody ever bought the books. And at the end of the book thing, I would tell jokes, and I'm very good at canned jokes. Just canned jokes. If you want some at the end, I can give you canned jokes. And I was running out of jokes. So I was surfing the net. By that time you could, um, for must have been 2003 because I was 70. Yeah, that's right. So I was surfing the net and I saw a thing saying San Francisco Comedy College. Now, you have to understand that my whole life I've been fighting to survive. I have not had a lot of money. I have been fighting just to get enough money to eat and to pay. I managed by a miracle to get a house and to pay that mortgage. And so I was everything, and I was alone. And I mean alone with no children, no partner, no, I had a lot of dogs and cats, which is why I can tell you I can fix your dogs and cats because I had no money, and if they got sick, I had to figure out how to cure them. So I had not been part of the greater society. I hadn't had time. I was too busy. By the time I started this, I was writing for Coast Views magazine. I had two television shows on a public access thing, so I wasn't paid for it. But of course, I loved it because I'm an egomaniac. And and I was writing for the newspaper, for the Pacifica Tribune, but not the New York Times. So I read, and it says San Francisco Comedy College. I was not aware that stand-up comedy had become a career. I had no idea. So I thought, this is a ripoff. They are taking young people, taking their money, and they are giving them nothing, because you can't teach someone to be funny, because I had no idea that there were people standing up. I knew about Joan Rivers, and I knew about Phyllis Diller, and I knew Jack Benny and George Burns, and these are all names you probably don't even know, but I knew about them. I didn't know Morecambe and Wise. What a shame, I missed that. But I didn't know that this was a career. So I called the man, and I'm a big believer that society gives you what you need. In this film that I was watching with the black grandfather and the young kid who wrote a concerto, the grandfather says, "You're here because you were meant to be." Well, I'm not a fatalist, but I think somehow the world gives you what you need. So this man who had no idea who I was, in those days, remember, you had message machines. You left a message, yeah. And his name is Curtis Matthews. And he called me up and he said, I just love small Jewish women. I thought, well, you have arrived. And I went there and I took the class. Now I am 70. I've been fighting to survive. The only people I ever talked to were people I interviewed, and my dogs. I talked a great deal to my dogs. And all of a sudden, I am thrust into a society of 18 to 22-year-old children. They're children. I'm 70. And I loved them. I loved them. And we became friends. And I have a history of eating disorder. I still have an eating disorder, although I fiercely deny it. But I was on the cusp of recovering from anorexia and bulimia, from that. And I've never had it since I started doing comedy. It just went away. Because for the first time I went into a restaurant. If you have an eating disorder, you don't go into a restaurant. So I mean, all of a sudden there was a life. And I started wearing skirts. All I wore, you call them tracksuits. That's all I ever were tracksuits. Um, because I was just walking the dogs. And a whole life opened up to me. And it never occurred to me that I was going to run into problems, because stand-up comedy is for young white men. I didn't know that. And I was driving. I lived in California, so I was driving. So I had nothing else to do at night. And I'm a night person. That was yeah, I stay up till 2, 3 in the morning. So I thought, why not? So I said to the dogs, okay, you're gonna have to stay home. And I be good. And drove to downtown San Francisco. And one of the things that interests me is people are so afraid. They say to me now, they say, well, don't walk in neighborhoods that aren't safe. I was driving in San Francisco to the Mission District and to the Tenderloin. I mean, I would step over drug addicts to get to these places, but because I didn't know that I was in danger, I would just do it. And I had the best time. And remember, I had a pension, and money has been so tight with me. It never occurred to me I should get money for this. And and in the meantime, I was reviewing things at the Edinburgh Festival. I had become a reviewer at the Edinburgh Festival. And how I did this, I will never know. I went over to Edinburgh from the time, God, how long has it been? It's just been forever that I've been going. It was in the 90s, I think I started going to Edinburgh. I don't know how I afforded it, but I did. But I never had to pay anything at Edinburgh because I wrote reviews for nothing, but I got to see everything. So that's how it all happened. And then after I graduated from the class, and they were just youngsters. And when you do stand-up comedy, you talk about yourself. So they're talking about things I had never imagined. I mean, you're taping this, so I can't tell you the words they were using. I didn't know what they were, and they're talking about it, and they're talking about their problems with recreational sex is not in my DNA. I mean, I'm from the 40s. We didn't have the pill. We didn't have anything. We didn't have Viagra either. We just stopped after a while. They didn't, and I was absolutely amazed and loving this life. and because I had gone to Edinburgh for so long, and I had I begun to do shows? Yeah, I had begun to do shows. No, I didn't have, I had begun to do shows because of my books. Because I have a book called Thoughts While Walking the Dog, which is storytelling. And I had begun to do shows there. So I called Hartley Kemp, who ran C Venues, and I said, I'm doing comedy, and I graduated, and I said, how would you like comedy from San Francisco? And he's thinking, oh my God, you're going to get Robin Williams. We'll get, we're gonna get the big names. And they got us. And if you've ever heard beginning comedians, they're terrible. They're absolutely terrible. They got us. But he kept booking me, and I came, and that was the year I started. It was 2005. I started burlesque because
Oh,
the theme.
onto that onto that journey. I'm fascinated.
Well,
Comedy, burlesque.
I was doing this comedy, and what I was well, we talk about walls. I was noticing that even though I was doing it for nothing, no one wanted to book me. So there was a woman named Betsy Salkin who still does comedy. And she said to me, people like you, and I'm not sure what she means, people like me. I thought people who are short or people who are Jewish. She meant people who are in their 70s. She said, people like you have to make their own shows. And if you have been following in any essence, my whole life has been just finding a way around the wall. So I thought, okay. So I went to a bar I was living in a little town 20 miles from the center of San Francisco. So I went to a bar that was a redneck blue collar bar. Do you know what all that is? I was probably the first Jew they ever saw. And the man's name was Don Holloway that owned it. And he's a doll. I am still in touch with him, and he's in my book. And I said, how would you like comedy? And he thought, he said, well, he's looking at this little old lady that can't even see over the top of the bar because I'm very short. And he said, yeah, if you want to do comedy, go ahead. Why not? And I did something that I'm very passionate about. Beginning comedians have a terrible time because comedians that are in the middle of rising, the comedians at the top are all darling, but the ones in the middle are really very careful to guard their position, and they're not nice to beginning comedians. And what they do, and they do it in Britain even more than in the United States, is they do a thing called open mics, and they don't pay them, but they charge the audience. And I find that fundamentally wrong. And I'm having trouble here because everybody hates me because I say that's absolutely wrong. Those comedians are making your show, you're taking in money, and you're not paying them. So I passed the bucket because I learned that in Edinburgh. That never would have occurred to me. I learned, and so comedians could come to Winter's Bar and face the most unwilling audience you can possibly imagine. They paid no attention to us at all. We were over in a corner talking, and they were like playing pool. And they would turn around and they would say, would that comedian please shut up? It was terrible, but they got money. So they would come over the motorway, and they would come to Pacifica, and I would give them money. And it wasn't very much because I would pass the bucket around, and most of those people hadn't even heard us. They were busy talking. But I was always able to give them at least enough for petrol, at least that much. So that's how it began.
Wow. And your burlesque came out of that?
Oh, well, the burlesque. She was a burlesque. As I was doing this younger boy, his name was Ian. God, I can't remember his last name, but I still remember. He played the guitar, and he used to sing funny songs, and we would be on the bill together. And he said, have you ever thought of singing? And I said, I can't carry a tune. He said, that's funnier. And so he said, do you have a song? Now, as I look back, I was always, the cut up, the one that did crazy stuff. And I did have a song, and it was a song from when I guess I learned it when I was about 7 or 8, and it's Johnny Mercer's Strip Polka. But when I was 7 or 8, I didn't know what the lady was doing. It's a spoof about a stripper. And the best line in it is it's talking about Queenie, and it says, take her out when it's over, the show. When it's over, she's a peach when she's dressed. That was, I love that line. But anyway, so I knew that song. So I said, well, I know that song. He said, okay, I'll make an accompaniment to it. You sing it. So by this time, I'm 70. I know what she's doing. So I thought, well, I better take off something. I don't know whether any of you know what happens to your body when you're 70. You really don't really want to take off something, especially in a redneck blue collar bar. And this was where I was, I think that'll make them look, that'll make, they'll send me to an old age home when they see what's happened. So I went to a charity shop and I got some fancy underwear. And this is a true story. I mean, I'm in Winter's Bar and I'm singing Take It Off, Take It Off, and I'm taking off layers of clothes. And my accountant, who, remember, I had no money. The only reason he did my taxes, which was constant, I never paid taxes. I didn't have enough money, but he would send in the form. And I loved him because he had a canary in his office. That was how I decided he was the accountant for me. He came to this thing, and as I'm running around ripping off clothes and throwing it at people, he put a $5 bill in my bra.
That'll do it.
That was the beginning of my next career. I thought, no one's done that. That's $5 in my bra. Nobody's been in that area for years. So I said, I'm going to do it again. And then the Edinburgh Festival happened and they were featuring burlesque. So I sang that song all over Edinburgh. I even jumped out of a cake for the, I've got a picture of it. I jumped out of a cake for the Orpheum. There was an Orpheum movie theater and it was celebrating, I was, 2005, I was 72. And it was celebrating its 70th birthday or something. I was older than the Orpheum Theater, and I jumped out of a cake to sing to them. And they thought I could sing. I can't sing. I just know that one song. And that has progressed. I must have about 50 songs now that I sing. And most of them are feminist, ageist protests. Yeah. I mean, the latest one is I'm not the woman you think you see. What is it? I'm a something in the kitchen. I'm a something in the kitchen and a tiger in bed, which isn't true, but that's what they can imagine. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh my gosh. Is there anything that you wouldn't try?
Yeah, I wouldn't try anything that hurt someone else. I wouldn't try anything that was counterproductive. I'd try. I'm not saying I would succeed, but isn't that what it's all about? It's the problem of there are yes, there are things I wouldn't try. Uh, I'm very conscious that romance is not a possibility for me. I don't believe it is. I was on first date. I was on first date. I was and they
How did
fixed me
that
up. Well, they fixed me up with this man. His name was John Banfield, as a matter of fact. They fixed me up with this man. He was younger than I. Of course, everybody is younger than I, but he was younger than I. Um, but he was very conventional. I'm very British. I'm sorry, but very British and very conventional. And I don't think I really fit that parameter very well. And I really shocked him. I just shocked him. He said, well, the one that shocked him, you can bleep this if you want, is he said to me, "Do you have any children?" And I wasn't thinking. He said, "Do you have any children?" I said, "Oh my God, no! I'd never do that to my vagina." And the first date people use that as a come on to watch First Date because we've got this funny lady, yeah. But I wasn't even thinking. I just that came out, and he was absolutely shocked. I mean, I think he said, "I think I'll have another drink." I think that's what he said. I think I need another drink. A lovely man, but not very adventuresome. But yes, I'm very conscious of of um of the fact that because I'm on stage a lot, that I don't look glamorous when I try to be glamorous. And when I had my 87th birthday, there was a break in the lockdown, and I was on stage and I did a cabaret. And there was a man that reviewed me, and I forget what newspaper it was, but it wasn't a very big one. It wasn't the New York Times, I'll tell you that. But anyhow, he reviewed me, and he spent 2 paragraphs about the fact that I was wearing pink tights and high heels. The high heels ladies were an inch. I I mean, when I was young, I was wearing 3.5 inch heels. They were an inch, but he couldn't get over that I was wearing pink tights. And all I can say to you is they matched. I mean, I wasn't trying to be outrageous. But that was the thing that fascinated him. He didn't say anything about the fact that I had done an hour plus of material, and I had remembered everything, and that I had talked about what it feels like to be 87.
Oh, there's a question I've got to ask you, Lynn, that's just come out of the blue. Is, one of the things that in the Silver Tent we are for women over 50, over 60, over 70, and beyond. And we are challenging convention about the role of the older woman in our society today. And you were talking about us having value, and I
Yes.
so I think there's a really fabulous fit with your perspective on life, and I have now completely forgotten that I question I was going
Oh,
to ask.
that happens too.
Really
But
annoying.
I will say this, my friend, I have a friend, Andrea, who is now, I think she's going to be 70. She's 69, and she's coming on to some Croatian guy because he's got a nice bum. This is not like me at all. I'm into the mind. I didn't know that was a characteristic you should look for. So now I'm starting to look at men's bums. I never did before. I never looked. And she said to me, she said, a guy would be really lucky to be with people like us because we're interesting, we're fabulous, we're fun, we're adventuresome, we're accepting, because by the time you get to be 87, if it hasn't happened to you once, it's happened to you a million times. You've seen it, done it. Um, and I thought, yes, but men don't think that. And men don't think that. So what happens is, as we get older, we feel more and more invisible, and then we because you look for where are you accepted, so we become addicted to our grandchildren. I have a friend named Ellen, and I absolutely love her, and when she retired with her husband, she just slipped into the same life she had when she was bringing up kids, but it was with her grandchildren. I take them to, she's Catholic, I take them to catechism or whatever it is she takes them to. She said, I have them over for dinner every Friday. I pick them up after school, which is exactly what she did with her own kids. And her husband said, I thought we were going to travel. And she said, no, I like that. And the word was not like. She liked it. It was safe, because we're afraid to get out there and get that push, that who are you? How many times all of you have stood at a counter and nobody's noticed that you were there? And of course, if you're 4'10", they can't even see you. But the point is, yeah, they don't notice. I was in Edinburgh as usual, and I needed help with my case. And I went with my friend Julie to the help desk, and I said, I'm going to need somebody to meet me in London when I get to London. And he spoke to Julie, and he said, well, we'll make a telephone call and we'll help. And she said, I didn't ask you. She did, but he didn't see me. He was like, we'll take care. And she couldn't get him to talk to me.
So I do have a question then, which is, um, if we've got either women here or watching, and they're coming up to a certain age and thinking that they would love to do something new but can't or daren't, or whatever it might be, what advice would you give them?
I say, try. Just try. You're not going to do the best story about that. I love the story, and it was in a book I was in. And I've never met this man, but he was in this book. He was in his 70s, and he was having terrible back problems. And he went to the doctor, and the doctor said, you need surgery. And he said, no, I'm not going to do surgery. I'm going to do ballet. And he took up ballet. Yeah. And the doctor said, you can't. He said, I'm going to try. And by the time he got in this book, he was dancing with major companies. And it was, if you know opera and ballet, it was things like Der Fledermaus, the jailer. I mean, he was not Rudolph, whatever his name is. He was not that. He was not Pavlova. He was nothing like that. He was an old man dancing, but he was dancing. He was
Fantastic.
dancing. And I always tell the story. if you've ever heard any of my singing, you know I'm totally off key. It's absolutely terrible. I don't really keep up with the music. Somewhere in there, I sort of get it. My mother and my sister used to sing all the time. And when I would join in, because I really like singing, they would turn to me and they would say, and they would harmonize. Oh, and they would turn to me and they would say, "Would you shut up? You're off key. And would you stop?" And my mother never sang anywhere but in the kitchen. My sister hasn't done a thing in her life but sit there, and I'm singing all over the world. That's what I would say to someone.
Brilliant. Just brilliant.
You're
Um,
going to find a way, and society is not going to want you to try. Your grandchildren are going to say, "I'll give you another story. Um, I'm doing this burlesque, and if anybody knows California, I'm in Half Moon Bay, and I'm doing, as usual, a charity where I'm not getting paid, and I'm ripping off my clothes to a backing track. And the editor of the magazine that I wrote for, which was Coast Views, whose name was Gwen, was playing the piano. And I said, "Oh, you can play the piano. Would you like to play the piano when I strip?" I don't have to tell you, as she was absorbing this bit of information. And her grandchild said, "Oh, no." He said, "My grandma, I don't want my grandma to do that." And she looked at me and she went, and I thought, I would have said to that kid, "Excuse me, you take care of your life. I'm taking care of mine." I don't, but she didn't play. She didn't. I kept the backing track, and I still have the backing track, by the way. And you can see me online singing this thing all the time. I still sing it. But yeah, you're not but we're forgetting that we were younger. Things weren't handed to us on a silver platter, but we believed we could do it. Don't you think the most important thing is to believe you can?
I do.
You
Yeah.
tell your grandchildren you can do it, but you don't think you can. You tell your partners, "Oh, age doesn't make a difference. Go try." But you don't. The reason I'm like this is I'm no miracle person, and believe me, I have not had a life where people handed me anything. But I didn't have those partners telling me you can't. I didn't have those children saying, "But I want you to make lunch." I mean, I've got a thing where I'm talking about getting my visa, where I say, if I could marry someone, I'll get a visa. But if I marry them, I'll have to cook 3 meals a day and I'll have to do other uncomfortable things. Do that. Not anymore. And also, I think that we have to learn that as we get older, what we want isn't the same, but we still go after that same goal. Do you get that? We still go after the same goal. And it doesn't work for us. I remember this lady, it was at Sterling Court in Burlingame. She said to me, she was in her 70s. She said, "I'm going to get a tummy tuck." I said, "Why?" She said, "Well, I don't look good in a bikini." I said, "The men that you're going to attract, they can't see past the end of their nose. You don't have to worry about they won't even see you. They won't know you have a bikini on. Spend the money on a cruise or something. Don't do that." But we want the same thing. So when I look in the mirror, I want to be beautiful like I thought beautiful was when I'm talking. Well, I'm not. And all of you, because the internet knows you're going to go online and suddenly you're going to get this ad because it's all over. It says, "Do you have crepey skin?" I'm thinking, yeah, I do have crepey skin. I have a lot of crepey skin. Up until I saw that ad, I wasn't bothered about it. But now I'm looking forward, yeah, really, yeah, it's drooping. What am I supposed to do? I've got crepey skin.
Oh, oh, Lynn, I love you. I love you. I've got a question about lockdown.
That's been
Were you in
something.
London throughout lockdown?
Pardon?
Were you in London throughout
I was
lockdown?
in London, and I stopped my performing, which is what keeps me alive. It keeps me alive. And at first it was awful. But then, and that was an advantage for me, most of my life is in my head. Remember, I had, before I started comedy, I had, what was it, 30 years where all I did was get up, walk the dog, sit at my typewriter. Ah, does anyone remember that? I sat at my typewriter and wrote things and sent it out in the hopes that the New York Times would hire me, which it didn't. Um, so I lived a life that was very solitary. I wrote a lot. I've written, I think, for it's a couple thousand magazines I've been in. Uh, never the big ones. Never the big ones. It's always, um, um, something like the the corner grocery newsletter, that kind of thing. I was in that. We'll pay you 5 cents. Write about yeast. It's like that. But I was always writing. So I just simply slipped into the routine that I had before I started comedy. And the art of that, I just read a statistic that people over 75, half of them are living alone. And there's an art to living alone. I started living alone when I was 25. And I remember the silence was deafening. To come home to nothing, I couldn't believe it. But now I know how to do it. I don't know how anyone that's brought up a family that's been cooking for 10 children or something, and had a wife, had a husband, and had a job, and juggled all those things, suddenly nothing. They don't know how to do it. But I do. And what I do is I structure my day. And the first thing I did was I immediately started doing 2 walks a day, because you were allowed to do that. And I structure my day, and I set an alarm, and I always get dressed. Always. Um I just, when I get up, I get dressed. And so I'm not walking around in my underwear. Well, I am, but I mean, this is, so I had a structure, a time to get up, a time to eat, a time. I do art. What you're seeing in this room is all this art. A time to paint, a time to read. I said, because I used to read on the tube. You couldn't take them. So I would sit and read. I practiced the keyboard. Before lockdown, I didn't. I was too busy. Now I practice the keyboard every night. I made a structure. And the other thing is, in lockdown, I had to believe that I mattered. And yeah, it's hard, isn't it? That it wasn't important to me because I didn't have grandchildren. So I'm imagining the heartbreak. My God, it would just have killed me if I couldn't see my grandchildren, because we tend to live vicariously, but I didn't have any. So I had to believe I was important enough to eat. I was important enough to paint a picture. I was important enough to play the piano. I'm terrible at it, by the way, absolutely awful. I'm just, I love it though. I'm learning Fur Elise now. I'm
Oh,
learning, da 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 da, and I'm so excited I'm doing it. And I play it, it's a piece that would take ordinarily on the piano would take, because you're supposed to play it very fast, about a minute and a half. It takes me about 10 minutes to get through it, but I do it. Anyway,
so my next question. I mean, I'm watching everybody's faces here as you talk to us, and you bring so much joy and lightness to spirit. And I'm wondering, does your humor give you that too? Like, can you lighten your spirit with your own way
my
of looking at the world?
humor, my humor is how I got through it all. If I had looked at everything in my life as a tragedy or as an impossible hurdle, I never would have tried anything. But I saw how ridiculously funny it was. I mean, I see things that are funny in the lockdown. I mean, things that simply don't make sense, and it's funny. And I make jokes about, what is the joke? They say that I've been alone. I've been alone in lockdown for a year and a half. They say that touch is a human right. You tell that to the UPS driver. I mean, it's that kind of thing. You've got to see that it's ridiculous what life has become, because, and I feel this very strongly. I feel that we're hurting our younger generation. And that's the other thing. We have to, at our age, care about what's happening to the environment, to our children, to our teenagers. I don't know about what it's like in England and the UK in university, but I know what it's like in America. You're wild, crazy, nutty kids. You do ridiculous things. We've taken that away from our children. That's awful. That's the time for them. This has been, for me, this is a tragic year for children from 14 to 25. Just a tragic year. And we need to give them that sense of adventure, that sense of, yeah, go ahead. Don't do something that makes sense. Just go ahead, do something that's really silly. That's all right. Just don't hurt someone else.
There's so many beautiful gems in everything that you say that impact us all at different times of our lives. And I've got some questions from Christina, but I think we can have those towards the end of the interview. And I just wanted to open up to the floor, if you're all right with that, Nick.
Please, please.
Does anybody here have a question that they would love to ask Lynn?
You
I
all
think
look
I've been
stunned.
laughing too much. Yes,
No, I
Sally.
love you all look stunned. Oh my God. The thing that I really want that's important for me is for you all to know that I'm not unusual. I just kept going. Winston Churchill said, when you're in hell, keep going. I just kept going.
Brilliant. So
That's all. I'm not the talents that I have, and I'm not fundamentally talented. I developed them. I didn't start out being because I remember in this book that I'm in, this Age of Happiness, it's called, where it's these people they're doing pole dancing, they're climbing poles, they're flying to the. I don't want to do anything like that. It didn't all happen at once. And when I look at these people, I think, yeah, it's really great that you're 95 and you're climbing a pole and flying around it. But I don't particularly want to do that. I would rather have something good for dinner. I don't want to do that. I don't want to be up there. I'm just doing a life.
So we've got a question from Sally for you, Lynn.
Or
Lynn,
Sally.
I'm
Yeah,
loving on here. I'm loving your energy. I love this enthusiasm for life that you have.
Someone has a dog. I'll take it.
What strikes me about this time of COVID is that so much of our fear is because we're all so afraid of death. And I know lots of people here believe the same, that when you cease to be afraid of death, then you let yourself live fully.
That's correct.
We're teaching our young that death is so scary, so to be afraid of, that we don't dare.
There's a wonderful line from All the Little Live Things by Wallace Stegner. And if you want to read something that'll break your heart, it's what it meant to have cancer in the 60s. It's All the Little Live Things. And the woman who has cancer and is pregnant and decides to have no chemotherapy in the 60s, because it would have killed the baby in the 60s, she said, the most dramatic, you only have two really dramatic times in your life: when you're born and when you die. And she's saying, because she said, I can't remember that first one, but I want to be present at the second. But there's something else too. At our age, please stop and remember what we've seen happen. I lived through the polio epidemic. I lived through the Asian flu epidemic. I had scarlet fever. It didn't close down the world because now we have the internet and so why be afraid? Your immune system will see you through. And the other thing that I tell everybody, because a lot of people are desperately afraid here, terribly afraid, and the children are afraid. And the way I think is when it happens, you'll cope. Because many people that have had COVID, and I've had it, it's like a mild flu for me. It isn't for some people, but when you've got it, you'll cope. When you've got it, you'll feel. But if you keep saying, what if, you're not living now. And the only thing that we have, all we've got is now. That's all. It's really hard to live that way, but that's really all we've got. I mean, you can step off a curb and get hit by a car. There we go.
Yeah, thank you so much for that question, Sally, and thank you, Lynn. And I'm really glad to hear that you had it and you had it mildly, because
and I've also had the vaccines. I've also had both vaccines. I had both vaccines, and I'm sitting there with people over 85, and I'm thinking, are they really going to give me a vaccine, or is this going to be the final solution? You know, are they really going to do it? But they did, and I had both. I had both of them. I can't waste my energy, and believe me, I'm not always that good, but I can't waste my energy on being afraid of something that hasn't happened yet.
Wow. Oh, what great words of wisdom, Lynn. Thank you. Who else has a question for Lynn? Or does anybody else have a question for Lynn? Yes, Christina.
I just like to ask the name of her book, and is it published
Oh,
that you can buy it, or is it
I am so glad
private
you asked. There's this one,
publisher?
which is the story I'm telling you about. It's about all the things that happened to me. And there's a new one, and I don't even have a website for it, but it's about these things we're talking about. It's exactly about what we are talking about. It is called Outrageously Old and Loving It. It has the best cover. It has the best cover, and it's on Amazon. And it was the first book, people, that was not published by me. I've been trying to get a publisher forever, and I've never been able to get a publisher, and I have self-published. My first book was, I think, like it was 30. I think I sold 30,000. Sold an awful lot of the first one, but no editor would take it. Remember, I find a way around it. This one, I have a publisher, and it's
Can you tell me the name of the first one again, Ruth?
the first one is Starving Hearts. If you want to know anything about an eating disorder, that's Starving Hearts. And the one you will all love is called The Late Bloomer. It's about a little lady that's 50, that's never been married, and wants, and her name, I named her Fanny, which is in itself ridiculous. And that's my funniest book. But this is the one about how it all happened.
Brilliant.
Getting the Last Laugh.
And it's on Amazon. And the one that about what we're talking about, exactly what we're talking about, is called Outrageously Old and Loving It. And it's just been published, I think,
Okay.
last week.
Fantastic.
I've just typed that all in the chat.
Yes, thank you, Christina, and we'll put that in. We'll link all of those.
That's lovely.
Both our groups under the information about your about this interview, so that as many people as possible can see.
And they're all print on demand. But if anybody wants a signed copy, they need to Facebook. They can find me on everything. You know, I'm not taking a chance. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Twitter. I haven't done TikTok yet, but I'm on all those things. I have a few of these I can sign and send you for the book plus postage. But the other one I still don't have. As soon as I have it, I'll do that also with that one, because that one's published in the United States. This one is print on demand, but it's about how it all happened, and it's about everybody thinks. Oh, well, I'll give you the. Did you ever read what's his name? He wrote The Outliers, and he wrote where he said, "You don't." He talks about the Beatles, and he said everybody thinks the Beatles had instant success, but they had been working for years and years and years. That's what this book is about. I didn't have instant success, not at all.
Malcolm Gladwell.
Yeah.
Gladwell.
You keep going.
Malcolm Gladwell.
That's it, Malcolm Gladwell. Oh, I've read all his books. I love it. The Outliers, but he did the other one. What was the other one? The one that talked about how you fail so much and then all of a sudden you make it.
The Tipping Point, did he write?
Yes, that's it. The Tipping Point.
Yeah, that was brilliant.
I loved his books, all his books.
Question: were you a funny child, or did humor come later?
No, I didn't realize it. I didn't realize it till I've looked back. I was always the wisecracker. I was the smart mouth. I was the one that
Funny
said,
bones. Funny bones.
Yeah, but I got punished for it a lot. I was always the one that, I never forget. I had a speech teacher that really got angry at me, and she said, "Just who do you think you are?" And I said, "LYNN RUTH MILLER." It was that kind of thing. I was a smart mouth, and that was infuriating. She was ready to kill me, but I didn't know I was being that way. That was how I got through a lot of rejection. There was a lot of rejection, and I got through it by being the funny one, but I was not the life of the party. I never did drugs. I never did alcohol, and I didn't. And I was really, because I was trying so hard to be accepted by my parents. By the way, I failed, but I was trying very hard to be accepted. So I wanted to be a good girl. So I did I mean, one of the things I think is so funny is we were very, because of the years that I was lived in, um, it was very important to be a virgin when you got married. I cannot tell you how shocked I was when I realized everybody else wasn't. I was. And I just got an email from somebody who went to college with her, and she said the only naked men she ever saw were in the art museum. So she thought that men's genitalia were shaped like a fig leaf. I love that. Like a fig leaf. She said, "Wasn't I surprised?" Yeah, she wrote that. That isn't mine. I thought, but she's right. I did too. All right. And I was not a rule breaker, but I was not a rule breaker, but I was funny. I would see funny things. I always wanted to write funny columns, and I've been a writer since I was 10. I've been a writer, not necessarily a good writer, but a writer. Yes.
Then
Sally,
I keep on having Ruby Wax's name come up. Are you?
Yes,
Are you?
and I object. Now I haven't heard her lately, but I object to her because she makes it sound too easy.
Yes.
I don't believe. I would say her thing is you have to get over all these terrible things. You can. I'm saying you can if you try, but you may not get what you want. You'll get something. I always used to say that when I taught university. Well, it's William David Thoreau. I would say make your castle in the air and then make the road that's going to get you there. This is what I want. Now, make the road that's going to what's going to get you there, and you're going to find that it's going to take you all kinds of different places. It isn't necessarily going to get you up to that castle, but it'll get you something. You learn from everything. I don't believe in failure, and I really don't believe in failure, which when you see what my life was, it's a miracle I don't, but I really don't. I think it's all a stepping stone. It's taking you where you're supposed to be, I hope.
wonderful. Anyone else want to ask Lynn a question? I think everybody's just loving. Oh yes, Nikki Mariano.
Hmm. Anybody? I
Hi.
don't have an answer to everything. I think that's the main thing. I don't have an answer.
Have you got anything new and exciting planned for the future?
Oh, I want to get a PhD. I want to get a PhD, and we're doing a fundraiser. If anybody's in London, May 24th, we're doing a fundraiser because I have to finance it. But I want to do a PhD about this. I want to do a PhD about how we ourselves stop ourselves from making life go this way, and society is helping us. And I want to show people that you are all you've got, and you have to make it the best you can possibly make it. If you just sit and say, no, I can't, no, I won't, it's just like people are so patronizing. And I'm thinking, do you realize you're actually hurting me by insisting that I can't cross the street myself? Let me cross the street. I can do it. If you stop me pretty soon, I won't be able to. If you stop me from climbing those steps, pretty soon I won't be able to. If you tell me I can't remember anything, you're right, but I'm going to work on that. I'm going to work on it. You're absolutely right, but I'm going to work on that. I've got lots of plans. I want to do another cabaret, and I have 3 songs written already, all the same tune. But of course, I don't know they're all the same tune, but they tend to be the same tune. I've got, I want to go back to all the places I was doing comedy in and see everybody again. I want to go back to Singapore and Hanoi and Saigon and Jakarta and Bangkok and Manila, because I have friends there and I want to see them. There's got to be a way.
So, Lynn, I think that's really exciting. Tell us where your fundraiser is And
It's
is
a
it a live one?
Oh God, I would love it. You'll all see. Yeah, and the woman that's running it her stage name is Ada Camp, and she has a PhD, and she's crazier than I am, and she's the MC, and it's at the Museum of Comedy in London, and it's the 24th, and I believe it's at 7:30.
Brilliant.
And we're raising money, and I doubt whether we'll get enough money to pay for the PhD. It's so expensive, but I really want to do it. I really want to, and I really believe I can.
How much do you have to raise?
Oh, it's just terrible. It's something like 4,500 pounds, and I mean, oh, no way. I'll be lucky if I get 100. But it's a beginning, and maybe some fat cat will see me and say, "Yes, we want that little lady to get her PhD when she's 110."
Or,
Is it live? Is it
Lynn,
a live performance in the theatre?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm going to be doing a complete live performance. I think I'll probably do. I wrote it originally as approaching 80, and then it became 80, and then it became 86, and I think now I'm going to call it 87. But I probably will do that, or else I'll do.
Are tickets available on Eventbrite from this woman you're talking about?
They will be. I'll write David and find they will be. They will
I've
be.
got friends who would definitely come to that.
I would love it. And I don't, because because money has been so difficult for me for so long. It isn't anymore. Nobody worry about me. I'm fine. But I don't have extra, but I've got enough. But anyway, that I really hate to put pressure on people. You come, and if you can't pay anything, that's fine too. I don't mind.
well, Lynn, what I'm going to do is, did you hear of the Jongleurs comedy clubs?
Yes, they won't hire me. I did one event there, and I absolutely wiped up the place. And it was in some horrible place. It was something like Streatham or something. It was in a no, it was in it was just in or maybe it was in some terrible place in Essex, Essex. It was terrible. But I did really well. And the guy that was booking really liked me. And then I think he did something stupid like dying. And then jongleurs, they do that. They do that, these old men. But anyway, then jongleurs, I think but they would never book me again.
Well, the woman that set Jongleurs up, that actually founded Jongleurs, Dr. Maria Kempinska, I know, and she did our last Silver Wisdom interview. She doesn't run Jongleurs anymore, but she has a PhD. And I know that she would love to connect with you, because I asked her if she knew you, and she said no. So I'm going to connect the two of you and just see what happens. And she's in
I would love it. And Ada, whose real name is Naomi, is also trying to help me. I have 2 universities interested, but I know I don't want anyone that shoves me into the academic slot. I want to do original research. I want to really talk to all of you about what you'd love to do and why you can't, and why you think you can't, and why when you try, someone tells you you can't. Why? Why? And I'm getting back to the crepey skin. It said in this ad, because of course I watched it because my skin is so crepey. You could make a dress out of this. It would be permanently pleated. I mean, so I'm watching this and it says, yes, when you have crepey skin. And I'm thinking, yes, I do. I have very crepey skin. So when you have crepey skin, you can't go places. And I'm thinking, well, I never really thought about that. I don't usually just say, hey, I've got crepey skin. I just, you can't wear the things you want to wear. And I'm thinking, well, I do burlesque. I don't really have very much on. It's pretty crepey. It says, yes, and you look. Are you ready for this? You look old. And I'm thinking, why? Why? I've survived a million things. I have changed countries. I've survived. I've survived cancer. I've survived COVID. I've survived. Why are these things that you see here? Why are they blemishes? And then I think to myself, yeah, but they are. And I think, no, they're not, but they are. So I bought some concealer. I figured, listen, I'm stuck with a crepey skin. It's gonna droop. And I often wonder, because this is about ladies, why men don't feel this way. They're pretty crepey. That was crepey. That was Why don't they? What have we done? And I believe that women have done this to ourselves. We have given them confidence. Why haven't they given us confidence?
Can I tell you my favorite joke, Lynn?
Yes, and then I'll tell you mine. Go ahead.
There are two old guys sitting in an old people's home having a cup of coffee together and a biscuit. And a very old lady runs down the corridor without her clothes on. One of the old men says to the other, "What was that?" And the other one says, "I don't know, but it needed ironing."
No, but it needs ironing. I love that. My favorite, really awful joke, and sounds very uncomfortable, but about old people is the old man that's, well, there are two of them. The old man that's sitting on the park bench and he's crying. He's crying, and this policeman says, "Sir," he said, "why are you crying? Can I help you?" And the man says, "Yes." He says, "I'm just so sad." He said, "Last night I met this absolutely beautiful woman," and remember, they're always younger. We'll have a moment of bitterness. He said, "I met this beautiful woman, and she took me home and she cooked me dinner, and then we had absolutely marvelous sex, and we cuddled all night, and then I went out to get her a newspaper and a cup of coffee." And the policeman says, "Why are you crying?" He says, "I can't remember where she lives." I know that's, you know, it's true, but I don't understand why my other one is a little bit too edgy, I think, for me to tell if it's going to be recorded. But the thing is, why don't they feel that way? Because we do. And I think we, as women, have bolstered in them and given them confidence that it's all right, darling. We don't care if you're drooping. We don't care if it doesn't get up or down. We love you for what you are, but I haven't heard they love us for what they are. I have a friend, and I don't want to name her because you're liable to know her, who turned 70, and her husband said, "I don't want to go to bed with someone who's 70. That's terrible. I said, "Why didn't you say, I don't want to go to bed with you?" She said, "Because I want to." I said, "Well, I can't help that." Yeah, that shouldn't happen. And my PhD change that. That's what I hope.
Yes, I'm so excited. I would love us as a community to help you with that PhD.
Oh my God, I would love that.
Just be brilliant if we can participate in the fundraising, and if we can participate in the research. That would just be glorious. So that how many people
nice if I got a scholarship
in this?
I got a scholarship. My IQ is 3, but I could still get a scholarship because I want it. No, I figure, listen, if Prince Philip, oh, bless Prince Philip, I feel so bad for him. He almost made it. I figure, yeah, if I get to be 100, I'll get a letter from the Queen, and because she'll make it. She'll make it. I'll get a letter from the Queen and a letter from the president, but I'm not sure he will. I'm planning to go back to America and run for president because I'm just the right age. Yeah.
Oh, Lynn, honestly, you've just been such a wonderful tonic, and I love your wisdom, and it had just been such a precious hour with you. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for joining me. That's so lovely of you.
I know that we'll all want to support you in every possible way, so let's keep in touch. I'll definitely keep in touch with you.
Oh, please.
Yeah, and I'll put you in touch with Maria from Jongle's.
Like, maybe she knows a university. Though I have a university, but I don't know the jargon. I have 2, and I've got to write them and tell them about the benefit, because then maybe they can. But the people that are willing to sponsor me don't know the mechanics of how I can get into the university, and I don't have the money. They're going to say, I mean, I need the money to live. London is an expensive place. It really is. And I need the money to live. I need the money to find, I have to find a puppy. Because the puppy won't care about the crepey skin. I'm telling you, the puppy won't care. The puppy will say,
quite a few of us have got those.
Say it again.
Quite a few of us have got those.
We've all got it, but no, but the thing is, until I saw that ad, I never really thought about that. Oh yeah.
There's a whole new act coming out of that.
It's coming. No, I can see a whole new monologue about crepey skin. Who knew? My God, is that bad? You never think of your skin as, oh, this is the wrong skin. You never look at your skin and say, plump up. Plump up, I'm going out. You don't do things like that. Yeah.
I absolutely love you,
Oh,
Lynn.
thank you so much. No, it's dear because I don't think of myself as wise. I don't think of myself as clever. I think of myself as determined, and I think of myself as believing that things will happen. That I can not that things will happen to me, that I can make things happen.
Absolutely. Wonderful. I think on that note, does anybody have anything, not necessarily a question for Lynn, but a thank you kind of,
Oh no, it's all right.
who would
My
like to
pleasure. I
come on?
love doing it. Anytime you want me to tell you jokes to make you miserable, I'll be happy to do that as well.
Well, I'm looking forward to finding ways to help you in your PhD
Oh,
journey.
that would be a blessing. I've got to write Naomi and tell her. Oh, that's Ada. You'll love Ada. Ada comes out in these crazy costumes and she's but the thing about her and her success is she's a character. I don't mean a character, she's a character. She's a different person. Naomi is not Ada Camp. I'm me. I'm exactly when I get up there, I'm exactly what you see. I always I'm this is it. Someone says, "You don't look 87." I'm saying, "This is it. This is what 87 looks like. I'll take off my clothes, you'll believe me." And I do take off my clothes if you play music.
If we ask you nicely.
If you ask me nicely and play music, no, only if you play music. I'm not just going to do it, just do it. Listen,
Well,
thank you very,
bless
very
your
much.
heart, and I hope that you'll come and have another interview at another time, and let you and I get in touch.
I will. Thank you so much. And thank you, ladies, for listening. It was
Thank you.
lovely. And bye for now. So I'm going to leave the
Oh,
meeting and I'll be writing you a thing saying I had a wonderful time. You're all wonderful and you're all beautiful to me. So thank you very, very much.
likewise.
I'm going.
Lots of love. Bye.
Bye.